Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for your time today and giving us some time this afternoon or morning, depending on what time, what part of the country you're in. Today, I really want to talk about migration trends and really 5 events or 5 things that are really impacting cloud migration today in 2022. And this isn't really meant to scare anyone, but these are real things that are happening in the market today, and a real reason why you should be looking at alternatives for technology decision making in the future. Okay, roughly the presentation will be about 35 to 40 minutes, so we probably will get done early. However, I like to leave about 20 minutes at the end for Q&A and for questions. All the phone lines will be muted, but if you have any questions during the webinar, type them into the question or chat box, or as well, you can raise your hand and Falana will call on you. So today, my name is Tyler Bauer. I'm the Director of Hosting Services in Cloud at Work. Really, what I focus on is running the business and really driving value to our customers in their decision-making and digital transformation. A little bit about Cloud at Work. We started in 2017. I helped start that organization back then, and really what we exist for is one reason and one reason only: to deliver the absolute best experience for Sage end users and Sage partners in the cloud. We are exclusively through partners like our great partner Oasis, and we work exclusively to deliver to Sage end users an excellent service in the cloud. Now, the way that we were able to come up with this idea was when we were looking at the business in 2017. We saw that there was a lot of enterprise cloud organizations who were mainly focused on some of the commodity aspects of availability, security, and redundancy. But where everyone wanted consumption of cloud was at the application level. They wanted to know that the infrastructure was talking to the application layer, and that there wasn't fingers being pointed at one another, or that they didn't have to deliver that solution in the cloud with 2 different counterparts. As well, there were a lot of Sage cloud organizations out there. However, we saw that they weren't focused on some of the principles of enterprise cloud computing, security, availability, and redundancy, and this led to solutions that just weren't up to par for what a lot of customers were looking for. So we set out to pair the 2. Well, the easiest way to describe this is visually. So within Cloud at Work, if you think about delivering your Sage solution in a cloud, you're probably going to think about AWS or Azure. And what most people don't know is that if you go to one of those large cloud server farms or cloud platforms, they're typically built with automation in mind at the infrastructure level. However, if you want to secure it, back it up, maintain it, support it, you're typically going to need a second layer, which is the cloud management company. These companies are in existence to essentially consult with you, help you provision new resources, help you keep it performing optimally, as well to make sure it's secure and backed up. Now, most times these cloud management companies aren't going to know what Sage is or how it works or the third parties and customizations that you use. Traditionally, these cloud management companies are going to be in the business of managing commodities. So to find a cloud management company that talks or knows Sage is very rare. Not to say it doesn't exist, but it is very rare. Now, from there, you have the third layer, which is Sage, and Sage is obviously what we're here talking about today. However, the challenge, or I think one of the main reasons why people use Sage, is because of the fantastic partner community, third parties, as well as customization capability that the business partners and the rest of the channel bring to the table. What it allows for is best of breed and taking the solution and making it yours, specific to your business process. And the fourth layer is your business partner, Oasis, and they're there to take all these different consumption methods of applications and bring them through to a business process to you, the customer. Now, in this model, it looks like you, the customer, have checked every box when it comes to cloud computing. You have your cloud platform, you have someone to manage it and secure it, you have your software, you have all your third parties, you have your business partner to make sure the application's set up correctly, and of course, you, the client, are here. However, when you're in the thick of it, and when you're using the software in the cloud, at some point in time, there's going to be a question or possibly even a problem. And you, the client, are going to have a decision to make because you're managing multiple vendors and managing multiple layers. And so you're going to have to decide whether you call the cloud management company, you attempt to call Amazon or Azure, maybe you try and call Sage, or maybe you call your business partner, Oasis. Now, however, depending on who you call and where the problem actually resides will determine your resolution method. And not to say that you couldn't choose right. Maybe you chose to call Oasis and they picked up right away and solved your problem right away. But the next time, maybe it's a cloud problem and your cloud management company says, nope, that's Sage, you got to call Sage or call your business partner. And before you know it, you're juggling all of these communication tracks because everyone's saying it's not my job. Well, that's what Cloud at Work does. We simplify and we say it is our job. We'll pick up the ball and we'll run with it across the finish line, and we're going to do it side by side with your business partner. And that's how we been able to grow. So far, Cloud at Work is the only accredited Sage Cloud solution in North America, both Canada and US. We represent Sage 100, Sage 300, Sage X3, HRMS, CRM, fixed assets. We have a ton of experience and a ton of customers that come from all different shapes and sizes, and we're experts in bringing that all together. But once you're actually using the cloud, that's really where the magic happens with Cloud at Work and Oasis. These are just some statistics to talk about, our kind of bullet points of who we are. The previous slide talks about why we're different. This is what makes us relevant. So at Cloud at Work, everything we build is 100% virtual private, which means dedicated to you. We guarantee a 99.99% uptime guarantee. That equates to 52 minutes of unscheduled downtime per year. That is what we contractually guarantee. For the last 4 years, we've trended at 6 nines, which is sub 32 seconds. These are a quick snapshot of our 3 data centers. We've recently just opened up our 3rd data center in Toronto, and we also have Collegeville and Dallas, Texas, as our 2 primary in the United States. We are 24/7 by 365. Because of our architecture of dedicating and isolating cloud environments for you, the customer, everything can be custom built specific to your business, no limitations, no matter if you have customizations, third parties, or even want to expand and grow in the future, we can completely accommodate. Now, every customer at Cloud at Work has pure SSD flash disk, so high performing disk to optimize performance for your business. And as well, every customer gets hourly snapshots. So every hour for 48 hours, we store your backups on a separate network. And then as well, redundant to that, we take a daily backup for 30 days and store that in a second data center on a separate network. Now, why that's important is because if you were hit with ransomware in Cloud at Work natively, no matter if you're spending $1 or $100 million, I wish, I'm just kidding. But you have the same redundancy policy and data residing on 3 networks. So if ransomware impacted your local environment, that trickled into your Sage environment in production, we can quickly restore you within minutes to the previous 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, or even 3 days ago. And the data and the backups are secure because they're separated from production. We have geodiverse data centers, as we talked about, an integrated cloud and Sage customer experience, extremely focused on that. No limitations, as I mentioned, and you can layer on things like dual factor authentication, full test and dev environments, or disaster recovery, which gives you a 4-hour RTO and a 1-hour RPO. As well, any licensing that you would need to run the environment is included. So anything SQL, Excel, Office, etc. So that's a quick commercial on Cloud at Work. Had to get through that. If you have any questions on Cloud at Work, please reach out to your account manager, Falana or Garen, and they'll certainly get a call scheduled. But today I want to talk about trends, not necessarily about Cloud at Work, but more around what I've found by talking to our 700 or so customers and talking to their technology leaders and their technology drivers. So today, when you look at technology, we rely on it more than ever. Post-pandemic, there's no doubt more people are working from home. We're using Teams more. We're using Zoom more. We're interacting with technology to move business forward more today than ever. So those are things with remote connectivity, people working from home. We need faster speeds, even though we're working from home. We don't want to sacrifice moving the needle forward. We have more data than ever before, so we don't care. We have more data, great. We need to figure out how to work with it and make it work better. But not only do we have more data and I want it to happen wherever I want and I want it faster, but I want to use it on or experience it on my mobile devices while I'm on the go. I don't think I need to get on an airplane and fly, or I don't think I need to come into the office today. Let's use Teams and Zoom. Oh, by the way, let's turn our cameras on and interact so we can gain culture. We still have a thirst for on-demand result, and the apps that we're beginning to use or consume, new versions of it, are more powerful than ever. So all these things are leading towards, hey, technology is changing, it's shifting, but it's not slowing down. If anything, it's speeding up. So what happens when the thirst or the need for more technology, faster, better, stronger, what happens when it slows down? It breaks or it just stops working altogether? It's absolute chaos. And it's even crazier chaos now because we're not all in one place most times. So to coordinate, to collaborate, to strategize is difficult if technology isn't working. So the first challenge that I want to talk about that's impacting previous decision-making policies of organizations is supply chain. So when you think about all of this thirst for new technology, and that's today, tomorrow it changes on a dime. We're going to need more and more and more and more. So we need to keep up with that. And we'll get into a little bit why a little bit later. But right now in supply chain for IT, hardware lead times are almost a year in some cases. Network switching and routing has 52-week lead times in some cases. At Cloud at Work, for example, in certain pieces of gear, we're managing 6 to 8 month lead times. Now, that's not a big deal for Cloud at Work because that's the only business we're in. We're in the business of purchasing millions of dollars of hardware. We have relationships direct with the manufacturers as well as the largest distributors in the world. However, we spend that kind of money with those folks, so they prioritize Cloud at Work. If you're not a prioritized customer, you're not this massive organization that's consistently purchasing hardware, where do you think you're going to end up in that line, right? Because there is a line. There's a line of us waiting for our stuff and so on and so forth. And there's people much larger, spend 10 millions and 20 million, tons of money. So what does that mean? Okay, it's going to take us longer to buy the things that we used to buy very quickly. Well, what it means is set it and forget it is gone. So if you look at some companies would make hardware cycles or refresh cycles once every 5 years, and they would buy hardware and they would place it. And sometimes they would try and stretch it to 6 or 7 years, buy extended warranties. However, what happens if something breaks? If just one thing breaks or becomes corrupt, or God forbid, ransomware attacks and becomes encrypted, you can't replace anymore. So you either need to overbuy, or you need to solve for redundancy and start thinking about redundancy. So single points of failure are all over the place, I'm sure, within everyone's IT environment as well as personnel. So we need to start thinking about those things because of direct supply chain challenges in the market. And unfortunately, I don't think that this is going to get better anytime soon. In talking to some of our manufacturers and distributors, they're saying that we haven't even reached the peak yet of some of these challenges. So what does it mean for us? So if something breaks, it's basically going to take 12 to 18 months to get a new one. If you want to go buy used equipment, we'll get into inflation in a little bit, but prices right now are between 30 and 60% more in the secondary market. So you're going to pay more for used stuff than you did 12 months ago. We can't bend from the employee user experience. Technology is speeding up, not slowing down, and the consumption and the employees and customers expect more faster. And the reaction may be to use the cloud service market, but the point to that is, if something happens, we don't want to react to anything. We want to be proactive. But the entire time that we're trying to figure out what we need to do, we're unable to be productive. So there's really 3 steps today that we can take to solve the problem. And if we simplify them, they boil into 3 different categories. And there's obviously more complex as we pick and dive into them deeper, but we can either buy more stuff, we can stay in the business of owning our infrastructure and owning our IT ecosystem. We can invest in disaster recovery. We can say, hey, we acknowledge that we have some single points of failure here. We acknowledge that there are some gaps, but we're going to choose to solve them with a recovery method instead, a secondary environment. Or you can migrate to the cloud proactively and plan out the right cloud resources for your business. So let's look at the first one, buying more stuff. So you'll need to be like Cloud at Work. You'll need to manage purchase lead times more efficiently. That will have to be a major function within your business. And as well, you'll need to buy more things than you had before to fill the single points of failure. So you have redundancy or you have stock in case something breaks. Everything is more expensive and it's continuing to be more expensive. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So we have to account for inflation. And as well, you're going to need to continue to manage and secure this environment. And those pressures are continuing to grow as well and become more difficult, which we'll talk about in a minute. You could invest in disaster recovery. Apologize, the title didn't come across clear, but you can invest in disaster recovery. Now, most companies, small business, mid-sized business that I'm talking to, will look at like a Datto or an InfraScale. What these companies are fantastic options for backup and recovery short term. And what they do is they put another piece of infrastructure on your local environment. They offer local replication. So basically all of your servers will replicate to that one device. If something fails, you can restore from that device. But if your whole site's down, you can actually restore and operate from their cloud or from the cloud. The challenge with these types of environments is that the infrastructure that you're running on isn't purpose-built to run full production loads. And so what a lot of companies are finding is they weren't testing this prior to having an event, and they went to use it and they were almost brought to a crawl. There was very limited in what they could do. They weren't able to see the performance they were seeing obviously locally, but not only that, they had no end in sight. So they had to snap react to the cloud just to gain the functionality for their business to keep up with demand. So those solutions are purpose built for short-term recovery as well as local recovery. There still are some gaps there, but I do think that they can play a role. However, certainly test it and make sure you have a redundancy plan in place and a recovery plan in place. You could look at AWS and Azure and build out virtual environments to fail over, to use some replication software to replicate your servers over. However, it gets pricey. It definitely gets pricey to maintain, to run, and efficiently move data between ingress and egress out of those environments. And as well, it's going to require testing too. In that type of solution, you'll probably need to engage a third-party provider to help you navigate and secure those environments, which can price it out of the water completely. Or you can look at a second location. Maybe you have multi-office, maybe you have co-location space already, and you can just look at replicating to a co-location or a data center in the event of something happening. Either way, in that business, you're just doubling down on this. You're buying more stuff and you are now still in that business. The third, and what most companies are looking at for as the most logical, especially for the most important parts of their business, which include ERP and software, is cloud computing. And what they get with that is unlimited scale, built-in redundancy, enhanced performance, enhanced security, and most importantly, I don't have to buy stuff anymore. It's usually going to be a managed solution. It's usually going to be more secure than what I can achieve locally. It's going to be faster usually, as well as have redundancy built in usually, and always going to be more scalable than owning infrastructure. I say usually because I'm talking at 1,000-foot level here in cloud computing in general. Obviously, Cloud at Work has a lot of these things: enhanced security, enhanced performance, etc. The second piece, or the second trend that I want to talk about, is really the office is almost gone. So I can tell you that Cloud at Work, we were never a brick and mortar office organization. We were always 100% remote, but a lot of our customers are now, some working from home, some going to the office. I wouldn't say the office is going away or gone, but there's definitely a lot more laxed view on going to the office. Now, what does that mean? And certainly, what did it mean during the pandemic? Well, a lot of organizations weren't set up for that. So think about having a business that is 100% built to have people come to it and connect. All the security, all the permissions, all of the infrastructure, the networks, everything is built to connect over the local network. Now you turn it on its head and you say, okay, now everyone needs to connect over the wide area network or the internet to access this stuff. It's a completely different game. It's a completely different solution set. And as well, it's a completely different skill set. And so what a lot of folks found was maybe their infrastructure wasn't built to handle that performance, certainly not their networks to handle all of that traffic in, as well, their security policies and permission policies weren't up to snuff when it came to allowing all these outside access in. The challenge with that is we need to make changes, and most people did begin to make changes and adapt. However, we need to not only adapt for what's already happened, but we need to adapt for what's going to happen. And so if we know that people are going to continue to work from home, that's just the beginning. Picture needing to invest in culture and invest in building teamwork and building collaboration. The only way to do that right now for most offices and businesses is through Teams or Zoom. But what happens maybe next if VR comes into play? I'm sure all of you have heard of the metaverse. Today, there's secondary real estate companies who are buying up virtual real estate and setting up office space and collaboration space with people being able to actually see and feel in 3D one another. And I think that certainly has merit. It certainly could be a possibility. What does that mean for the networks? How do we secure that? How do we make sure that everything is working optimally and that we're not having blips or any type of lag? Cool stat that happened. And before I do that, the instant gratification isn't going away. Just because we're not in the office or maybe we're on the road, we still want things to happen immediately. And technology and the foundation of cloud helps do that. Interesting stat that was in Forrester was that today the average person in 2022 will interact with a smart device data center about 2,400 times per day. Within 2 to 3 years, that's going to double. I mean, if you think about it, I can't tell you how many times I yell at my 10-year-old to get off of his phone. And I'll admit it, how many times my wife tells me to stop watching TikTok or get off and stop watching the ball game on your phone. It's just so easy. It's so convenient. I can't imagine what life will be like with that doubled. But immediately we go to a personal element, but that will carry over professionally as well. And those burdens will have to land somewhere. And are they going to land on your network? Are you going to have to secure all those different iterations? Are you going to have to shoulder that burden? Or are you going to look for the service market to help you there who are focused on it? So the theme is it's getting more and more difficult to do the old way. Not to say it's impossible, but it's becoming more and more difficult. The third bullet point, security is insecure. So one tangible way, a lot of people ask me, Tyler, look, I get the whole security thing, we're taking it serious. But look, it's something we look at, but we don't take it super serious. Well, one thing that a lot of companies are doing and feeling the financial impacts on are cybersecurity insurance premiums. Probably some of you, if not all of you, have these policies in place. What a lot of people don't know is that when you go to renew your policy, and if you're accessing applications remotely and not using dual factor authentication or multi-factor authentication to access those apps, your cyber insurance carrier could drop you and not renew your policy altogether. If there's a security event and it's determined that multi-factor authentication was not used and the threat was impacted through a remote accessed from a user remotely accessing an application that wasn't protected by multi-factor, they can deny your claim. As well, we're seeing insurance premiums increase by almost 56%. That's insane, right? I mean, that's tangible financial data that's showing that companies aren't taking security as seriously as they should. And now people are paying for it. As well, it's showing that these companies, these actuaries, and these scientists who are creating these policies are saying, hey, this isn't slowing down. This is going to get worse, and people aren't taking this serious enough. We better protect ourselves, increase our premiums as well. Let's begin to put measures in place to make people invest in their IT security and IT infrastructure, so that way we don't have to pay out as much. Last year, the average ransomware transaction per month was $102 million per month. Think about that. That's a lot of money that's being transacted per month just through ransomware. And there was 68 different variants in 2021. So those variants included many different types. However, the most where ransomware has evolved is before it used to be kind of like throwing a fishing net out into the water, and they just threw it out and hopefully they caught a couple fish. And if you were doing backups, or if you were taking security somewhat seriously, maybe you trained your users and they didn't click on something or do something that was sketchy, you got through the net. But a lot of people didn't do anything and they got caught in the net. Now people are aware of the very common emails. People are aware of that, hey, maybe somebody clicked on something they shouldn't have, but nothing happened. So now what's happening is these companies are becoming more spear phishing or speared in their attacks. They're infiltrating networks. They're sitting and waiting and watching, figuring out how to branch off to your customers or branch off to your vendors, or branch off to other employees to then branch off to the next. They're not just acting on the first action to their threat. They're trying to see, how long can I sit and wait and watch? When am I going to find the thing that's really worth something? And that's how it's changing, and that's why it's extremely scary. A lot of people, even today, are infected with security or different types of threats, and they're just not aware. They could have been used in a middle ground scenario, or they could have been still being targeted and they're just being watched. So it's something to really take serious and get analyzed. There were over 140 million attacks and attempts in 2021. It's a lot. I mean, to think that our business is not susceptible because we don't have anything that they would want. It's not about that. It's about, hey, is this important to you? Cool. I'm going to encrypt it, and you're going to have to pay me money to get it back. And that's the scary part. The fourth point is inflation is a one-way street. So as most of you are aware, we're seeing inflation up to 9–10%. It's the highest inflation rate since 1980. However, in technology, inflation doesn't come back down. It's not a gallon of gas. It's not a loaf of bread. Eventually, those things will come back down because the raw materials and the process will become less expensive. It always fluctuates. However, companies, manufacturers of technology companies and chips and different types of hardware, they just look at inflation as a way to charge more for something that they were already going to inflate anyway. And certainly they're never going to bring it back down. They're just going to continue to at a decreasing rate once inflation doesn't allow them to increase it at a 9–10% fold. If you look at Microsoft is raising licensing prices owned for multiple years by 20% in some cases. Certainly their costs to maintain a simple SQL license that's been released for the past 5 years hasn't gone up, but they see it as an opportunity to get more money. So those types of things will not come back down. They'll stay at that level. Just they'll stop increasing at the higher rate. And 5, and I think the most important, is the workforce, people, and retention. If we don't take these things seriously, if we have an insecure environment, if we don't enable the use of technology the way our employees want, if we're not a company that's focused and investing in better, smarter ways to operate, higher performing ways to operate, as companies get younger, those younger folks will look elsewhere to do their job because they're looking for ways to do things better, faster, stronger. No matter what we do, we can't change that. We're not going to be able to buck that system. We need to get on board. We need to understand that along with technology, people are extremely important. And in my case, in my opinion, the most important piece of my business. And with the great resignation that took place, we're also now starting to see some of the baby boomer generation begin to move away, and younger generations are coming into more prominent roles within organizations quicker. That is going to push demand of technology and culture and the access from anywhere, anytime, securely. It's going to push that through the roof. Everyone wants to be productive, but certainly nothing frustrates some of the younger generations more than if they have a way to do something better, faster, stronger, but the organization won't invest in it. So it's just a different way to think about technology. So as we wrap this all up, right now, for the first time in history, those 5 things, which are nothing new, are at an all-time high at the same time. It's never happened before. So be proactive. Take this seriously. Think about, even if it's just one thing that you want to explore, think about that and how it could impact your decision-making for the future. Certainly, would love to have a collaborative, strategic conversation with you about your business and about your IT decision-making. I can help you, but certainly understand if you trust someone else more for that. But if anything that you take from this, just please be proactive, take it serious, understand that supply chain, the new office, cybersecurity, inflation, workforce and retention in 2022 are real, and they're impacting major businesses and major technology decisions. With that being said, please type your questions into the chat. Here's all my contact info as well as Garen's. But if there's anything that I can do for any of you or answer for any of you, please feel free to reach out. Well, thank you again for your time. I hope all of you have a fantastic day. And please don't hesitate to reach out. We can help you, guide you through this, and give you honest, non-biased feedback as you move forward. So thanks again, and everyone have a great day.